over the internet and will be available to view online now and in the future. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Those attending in the chamber, please be aware that we are all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking. And please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Committee members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. And please remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, attendance and apologies. Niall, do we have apologies?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Janet Jones and Carl Gordon.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Niall, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they have any interest to declare?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So we'll start with Councillor Ashley.
None. After the day, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Best.
Nothing from me.
Councillor Evans.
None that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, Councillor Horler.
Personal non-prejudicial interest in agenda item 4 as a member of Pontypool Community Council.
Okay, Councillor Gaynor James.
Yes, item number 4 is a member of Pontypool Community Council and is also my ward.
Okay, Councillor John James.
Yeah, item number 4, Pontypool Community Council.
Okay, Chair.
Nothing to declare, thank you.
Councillor Slade.
Yep, nothing to declare.
And Councillor Williams.
Nothing to declare.
Okay, that's everyone, Chair.
Thank you, Niall. Right, we'll go on to agenda item 3. Minutes of the Planning Committee from the 16th of March 2023. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. Can't see any hands going up. Nothing. Right. So we'll take those as approved. Thank you. Agenda item 4. Planning application 23/P/0101/FUL, and it's for refurbishment works to an existing multi-storey car park, including the demolition and replacement of an existing vertical stair core, the removal of masonry cladding, replacement roof with photovoltaic, that's PV, array, general improvements and maintenance, including painting and lighting and associated works. Can I ask Mia McAndrew, Senior Planner, to present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So this application relates to the existing multi-storey car park on Glantorvine Road in Pontypool. It's a council application that's been awarded funding by the Landmark Levelling Up Fund. They seek consent for the refurbishment and extension of the existing multi-storey car park. Here's a satellite image of the site. You can see that the existing flat roof is used as a car park connected to Tesco's supermarket, and the civic centre is immediately to the east and the police station is to the north. Should note that the site is designated as a coalfield, but it's a low-risk area for development. Here are some existing site photos of the car park. So you can see in the bottom right, driving from Tesco's onto the flat roof. And then you can see that the building is finished with brick, and the parapet wall at the top is clad with grey tiles to match the grey tiles on the stairwell roof. The building has archways to reflect the appearance of the listed civic centre. And here are some existing elevation drawings of the building. This slide shows the historic setting of the building. The green area on the diagram shows the Pontypool Conservation Area, which wraps around the site, and the yellow squares on the diagram next to it show the surrounding listed buildings. The image above is useful to show the car park at the top of the hill, where you can see the listed buildings and the Civic Centre in front. I should note as well that the car park is within the setting of the listed building in the conservation area. It does need refurbishment, but it doesn't harm the setting of these historic assets at present, but also it's not an integral part of their character. So the proposal is to remove the brickwork, to clad the structure, to have a roof extension with integrated solar panels, to have a glass extension on the elevation facing the police station, and there would be public toilets on the ground floor of this glass extension. There would be 6, and 2 of them would be gender neutral and accessible. There would be a lift, there would be stairwells, and there would be a pedestrian access to Tesco's. Here's a roof plan. So you can see that they've split it into sections so that they can get an angular roof to accommodate the solar panels. Here's a 3D visualisation of the building. The heritage and landscape officers that we consulted have raised concerns about the design of the building, and that's because it's quite an unusual form and it would have a large scale with that roof extension. The applicant has explained that they wanted to take a modern approach instead of trying to reflect the appearance of the existing building and surrounding buildings, but they wanted to have an industrial appearance to make reference to Pontypool's industrial history. Here are some useful images that show the building in the context of the site. You can see on the right, there's 3D images of it. These are the views from near Tesco's. So we've received limited material details and we haven't received samples. We've been advised that there'll be two different types of metal cladding. One is this stainless steel mesh rod cladding and the other is an expanded mesh. The applicants indicated that they would like to install this in this Corten steel colour. And the metal frame for the glass extension would be steel in this anthracite grey. The link to this would have an industrial appearance using metal materials, but Pontypool didn't produce steel. It was known for producing coal and iron predominantly. So we've requested a material condition so that we can see more details and check that the cladding would be of high quality and also choose the best colour. Here are some examples of the material. It's quite hard to, in the 3D images, because it's a semi-transparent cladding, the rod cladding, it's hard to come across in 3D visualisation, so I put in some photos of some examples to give you a good idea. So this is it used on a hospital in Mallorca, and this is it used on an art museum in Mannheim in Germany. The applicant did explore some alternatives. This is one, and there was canopies on the existing roof instead of having that new roof structure, but unfortunately the existing car park structure wouldn't be able to support this, so that's why they've had to build up off that for the new roof structure to accommodate the solar panels, which are an integral part of the scheme and that the Levelling Up Fund has been based on. These solar panels would generate enough energy to power the car park and the electric vehicle charging points within the car park, and to charge and to power approximately 60% of the Civic Centre. And just to note as well that the number of parking spaces would only slightly increase from 261 to 263 spaces, but there would now be 10 electric vehicle charging spaces and disabled bays and motorcycle vehicle bays included. A landscaping scheme was submitted, but the officer report explains that we did not consider it to be acceptable and that we would verbally update committee regarding this matter. This is the design, the revised landscaping scheme is still work in progress. We haven't received it yet, so we've agreed to amend the landscaping condition so that it'll include works to the trees. The tree officer, the ecology officer and the landscape officer are happy with this. So what we're expecting in the landscaping scheme that we'd secure by condition is that 3 hornbeam trees to the south of the building would be retained. These were previously proposed to be removed, but we did not consider this acceptable due to the ecological impact. So they're now proposed to be retained. An ash tree would be removed because it's got signs of ash dieback, but to replace this, they would be proposing 4 trees to the south and 1 to the front, to the north, opposite the police station. We're also expecting fern and various grasses to be planted to improve the existing landscape areas, and the landscape officer has requested the integration of evergreen to make it more attractive all year round. There would be public art near the existing walkway to Tesco's. This would include a sculpture and a pop-up art display. And there would be the retention and relocation of the existing arrow signs to the front of the building, which were previously provided under a regeneration scheme. Also to note is that we will be requiring an ecological enhancement scheme via condition, and the development also requires SAB consent, so there would be a sustainable urban drainage system. In conclusion, the development would harm assessing of the listed building and conservation area due to its unusual form and large scale. It wouldn't reflect the appearance of the surrounding buildings. However, this harm can be limited by the suggested materials conditions to make sure that it would have a high quality finish that does reflect the industrial history of Pontypool. And the development would have significant benefits that we must consider. So this includes the investment in Pontypool. It includes making the car park a more usable, safe space which will attract visitors. It would be provided as part of a wider Levelling Up Fund scheme. And it would be the provision of public and accessible toilets. There would be the provision of solar panels. There would be the provision of electric vehicle charging spaces. There would be a lift to improve accessibility. And there would be improved landscaping, and there would be new trees planted. So on balance, we believe that the benefits of the scheme outweigh the harm, and we recommend that consent is granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mia. Geraint, can you confirm if there are members wishing to comment or ask a query in the chamber? Because I got 2 hands up that I can see.
Yes, Chair. Councillor Gaynor-James would like to come in, and Councillor David Williams.
Right, and Williams. Right, we'll take Councillor Ashley first.
Right. Thank you for that. I think they've probably made the best of something that's basically a car park. It's always was going to be. I do like the idea of the solar panel roof on the top. That does look quite nice. The problem with this structure, which I think as members we all know well, is it's part of it's north facing, and it's shaded by the civic centre. The questions I'm going to ask you, you probably guess, is about the trees and the planting. Because one of the things I've noticed to this building the years I've been going up there, and certainly up the back elevation, is it grows mould like nobody's business. And it also, if you look, there's a wonderful crop of blackberries up there at the moment. So the questioning is 3 hornbeams, the ash out. I've got no problem with that, and ferns. The thing that's one of the sets of questions I have about it because that building. I mean, what you're proposing, we'd probably do the similar thing to car parks in Cwmbran because they are what they are, concrete car parks. You put cars in. Cladding it and making it look more acceptable. It's grey. I can't think what else you would do to it unless you put pretty colours on it and went full Cavassier. But the options you've got are probably that, and that costs you a lot of money. But what I'm asking about, you're obviously on the ball with putting a plan together that's acceptable in terms of greenwashing, pardon the expression. But in terms of where you go with that, I think we as planning committee must be clear where we're going with this greening, because my other major concern, if you look round the back of the Civic, there's a garden there, and we've got that other building that we're going to be asked about, which is St James's. I believe it's going to be an art centre. Gaynor probably knows more about this, but that linkage between that garden and this structure is quite important, because there's going to be a kind of green corridor in the back of there. I think that's right. That the gain for the residents of Pontypool and the Civic, our workforce, is rather important. It's a psychological thing going on there. I'm sure other members will have a comment about this as well. The other aspect of this is one enormous great block of building. I need to satisfy myself as a member of the planning committee. We've got the drainage and the SUDS sustainable urban drainage aspects of this right. And if we're planting things in there, how much water is going to come down there, and whether we can absorb it? Could you answer that little bit, if you may, please?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ashley. Mia, could you answer it, please?
Thank you, Chair. When we receive the landscaping scheme, the landscape officer will be consulted and will ensure that it's at an acceptable level. And then in terms of drainage, the site is subject, or this development is subject to SAB consent. So there will be a sustainable urban drainage system that will be approved by the drainage body. Does that answer your question?
As far as the greening and the trees, etc., you're going to set conditions. Are they going to be inspected and come back to this committee? That would satisfy me if that was the case. But obviously, we've got it's a huge, great bit of land in there, and the building itself. If we're imposing ferns on it, like we're doing these days with buildings, is that how it's going to function?
If I can just come in there, sorry. Yeah. If I can just come in there, I think. We've got some landscaping details already, and we are consulting, well, you know, Henrietta in our landscaping team is advising us on this. So I think that we're going to get a fairly good landscaping scheme out of it. It's not uncommon to condition the details of that. The biggest issue that we had was the retention of the trees. We've secured that in principle. There will be some works that need to be done, but as a matter of detail, we would normally deal with that as a condition. If members wanted those details to come back to committee, we can do that. My only concern is whether that would affect the timing of the Levelling Up Fund progress and programme. So it's up to members, but it's not unusual for us to condition the details of the landscaping. But if members did want it to come back to committee, we will do that. But as I said, I'm not quite sure about how that affects the programme.
Chair, can I ask the Chief Officer, can that be done and maintain the progress?
Can you answer that, Richard?
Yeah, we've been told that it's quite essential to get a decision at committee today to make sure that the programme and the implementation of the Levelling Up Fund is done within a timely fashion. I don't have information to be able to say whether or not this can come back to committee and whether that would actually impact on the programme. But if that's what members want, there's no reason why it can't come back to committee. I think the point I'm making is that it's not usual. It's a council scheme, so the council has control over it and will be doing a good job, I would suspect, on that. But it's still members' choice as to whether it comes back to committee.
I'll leave it there, Chair, and let other members comment.
Okay, then. Thank you. Councillor Stephen Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Got three quick ones. The first one, when the toilets are put in place, are we going to have a safe walking route to the toilets, particularly for anybody with disabilities? Because it's quite a precarious position to try and get to that car park, even if you're coming from the town centre. The other thing is, when you're doing all the work on that car park, where is the provision for all the people that normally park there? Where are the mitigating parking for that? And are you going to be closing the road off towards the Civic? Because there has to be large equipment to deal with all the structures and the debris and everything that's involved with that process. So are we going to be shutting that road off by the police station? And the last one I got is this cladding fire regulated and safe to use? Considering with Grenfell, you know, we need to be mindful and we need to make sure that it is safe and have guarantees for that.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Mia, could you answer it, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just firstly, regarding the accessible route to the toilets, that is a good point. The extension itself is going to be flat, but I do appreciate that the hill the building is on could be an issue. So we could condition details of an accessible route. And in terms of the management of the car park being closed and road closures, there are two conditions. One is for a construction environmental management plan, and the other is for a car park management scheme. And we would basically seek to make sure that during the construction process the surrounding area is protected and that there would be suitable parking provided elsewhere to mitigate the fact that the car park would need to be closed temporarily. So those details would follow. In terms of the cladding being fire safety, I presume they are, and that is something to make note of. And when we have the materials condition, we can make sure that that is something that is addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll ask now Councillor Gaynor-James to ask a question.
Thank you, Chair. No, it's not a question. It's basically saying that with the conditions of the gardens being correct and they use good quality materials on it, I said this is a no-brainer and Pontypool actually needs it, and it's been covered by the Levelling Up scheme, and they are in desperate time limit to get this passed. So I'll approve it, but it's up to the rest of the members.
Okay, thank you, Councillor James. If there aren't any other members concerned about the timescales, could we ask the officers to keep the committee up to date by email? Would that suit members? Yes?
Yes.
Right, we'll go now
Yes.
and take Councillor Williams's question.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay? Great.
Yes.
Again, just to sort of state up front that I'm very much in favour of this, and I would echo my colleagues' points there that this is obviously something that's needed. So I think we're looking really more around the edges. Drainage has been mentioned, but I think probably my concern would be a little bit more about dealing with standing water. If you've got your flat roof, and you talked a little bit about a slope to the photovoltaics, but I know that you do get quite a lot of standing water in that car park area at the top. So I would hope that there'll be some measures to address that. That's the first point. My second point is that, whether there is any scope for and what actually happens to those materials that are, the bricks basically. Is there scope for those to be reused in some way? Or is it very much a destruction phase, I suppose? In this time of reuse and repair, I'm just wondering whether there's some scope for that to be reused in some way. Very pleased to note the work that's been done about the retention of trees and the landscaping. I think that's a very helpful answer, Richard, because obviously it's really as that progresses and you have the officers working on it, you go through the detail. I shared some of the concerns about the fire safety cladding, so I think we need some assurance on that. My other point was, I'm still, if I'm perfectly honest, I'm slightly unsure of quite what colour you're still going to be aiming for, because there's been mention of a lighter colour grey, but there's also been mention of this Cortel steel colour. So it's not immediately apparent whether you're still going with the Cortel steel or whether it's actually being more muted. So clarification on that would be helpful. And also, linked to that, clarification that those materials are rust-proof. I've seen sort of different designs put on buildings, and 3 years later, they've rusted and they don't have the same visual impact. So that's a concern. And finally, apologies for lots of questions, it's an observation that obviously I would think this redevelopment would be a good opportunity for the consideration of undercover push bike storage, and it would be good to think we could include this, particularly with the frame. You know, even if you took out one car parking space, you know, I think it would still be worthwhile considering. Those are my observations, and some requiring responses, I think.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Councillor Williams. Mia, could you answer the questions, please?
Yeah,
or is it Richard?
Sorry, we'll probably do it between us. But with the drainage, first of all, something came in, new regulations came in several years ago, whereby the drainage of schemes, now surface water, stormwater drainage, on schemes like this is dealt with by not planning authority, another authority, which happens to be the council as well. The council is the SARB authority, but they need to make a separate application in terms of drainage. We normally put drainage conditions on, but actually, in reality, all of that would be looked at by the council as the drainage authority rather than the planning authority. So it will be dealt with, but by a different... It's very technical, and that's why it's sort of outside of the remit of planning. You mentioned about materials, and I think what Mia mentioned is that we are not sure about the actual colour and type. So we are conditioning that so that we know exactly what they're proposing. What I would suggest is when we have details of that, as somebody has suggested, we circulate it to members to let them know. You mentioned the fire safety of cladding, a very, very important issue. And I think given the coverage that we've had on that, this authority is alert to it. So that would be a building regulations issue and would be covered under a different application for building regulations rather than in planning. In terms of the materials being rust-proof, that's an interesting question. And I think that we can raise that as part of the condition when we require details of it to see what it looks like in the future. So yeah, a lot of materials that you get do end up rusting. It'll be interesting to see what they're proposing and whether that is a problem going forward. So we can look at that. And I think finally the bike storage. It was something that we thought about in terms of bike storage. I'm not quite sure what the overall plan of bike storage is in Pontypool and what there is at the moment. There's nothing proposed here, but I think that if you're happy, we will raise the question in the wider sense and see whether the future of bike parking could be incorporated within the car park, or whether there's some other programme that's being worked on. If that's okay, we'll raise it in that way.
Thank you, Richard. That's helpful. I think it's important to consider it in the overall footprint of what we plan to do.
Has all the questions been answered? Right, thank you. Councillor Alan Slade, you'd like to come in with a question?
Yeah, hi, thank you, Chair. There are obviously benefits to this, but there are also some disbenefits. It is overbearing. It does stick out like a sore thumb. But one of the things that have been mentioned is that it will provide a safer space than the existing one. Has the police been consulted? I know they're not a statutory consultee, but they are a non-statutory consultee, and the advice is to consult with those where there is potential to eliminate or reduce crime. So have the police, been consulted about it, and what have they said?
Somebody answer that, please.
Sorry, they haven't been consulted as part of the planning application. I don't know whether they've been consulted as part of the Levelling Up Fund. I don't see why they can't be consulted as part of the Levelling Up Fund, but we haven't done so under planning. As it's a council scheme, that is something that I'd be quite happy to take back to the officers dealing with it and leading on it to make sure the police are involved in that.
Yeah, it's just that I would have a bit more confidence that it is going to be a safe space if the police had actually been able to, been able to assess it. As it is, we're taking somebody's word for it, I suppose. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I think they've. I don't know what the lead officers have done in connection with that thus far, but to say that they have, they're satisfied that it's safe, I'm presuming that they will have gone through some kind of audit to do that. But happy to raise that with them again for sure.
Could I just add, that some elements of the scheme do indicate it would be safer. In their planning statement, they talk about the use of painting at lighter colours inside to lighten the space. There would be a glass extension on the front, which would be better overlooked in the existing stairwell, which there are issues with. The use of semi-transparent materials would sort of give views in and out of the car park, and then just improving the quality of the space as well. So they're just matters that do indicate that it will be a higher quality space that could be safer.
Thank you, Mia. Right, Councillor Ashley, you want to come in again?
Please. I'm just going back to David's observation, which I should have raised, but I was still in the bike car park, the bike park question. There isn't any bike parking facility in the Civic other than a couple of Coventries, i.e. those big things outside of the thing. They are not very good. So I will reiterate what David said. I will also reiterate several other aspects of the Civic stroke car parking thing. Number two is motorcycle parking as well would be another one, because there's only a couple of motorcycling, if you're a motorcycle or you're a mobility scooter, which is the other one. The aspect of parking those as well, and e-bikes, there's all this coming up as well. That needs consideration. So it's actually more than cycles. The other aspect of this particular building, which my mobility isn't as good as it used to be, I'm not cycling anymore, actually getting around the building, on the aspect of the building, if you go down the back bit of it, or you go up to the pedestrian way to Tesco's, it is not brilliant going up and down there, especially if you have limited mobility. It is not on the level. If you're going up there with a stick or a frame, or even trying to go up, you can't get up and down there with a mobility scooter. Is that going to be improved, any of that? That is a question. The other is, are they going to replace the existing steps and things, because they're not the best at the moment, and in icy weather they're pretty awful. So whether we take this amount of money we're going to spend on it, are we going to get them replaced? Also, the stairwells going up and down at the moment are horrible. I have to hang on if I'm going up there. I can imagine other people worse than me find it even worse than that. So it's worth asking these questions on that aspect, because it's raw concrete, which is not the nicest of materials to go up and down. The rear elevation at the moment, right on the other end, is actually quite often. So there's a question about ongoing maintenance of this building. Who's responsible for it? Probably the council, but it is worth asking. If we can design into the building the maintenance, that would make life a lot better. But we're putting solar panels on it. We should be able to look at materials that can do that for us. There are buildings that I go in where this is a lot better. That's the one question. The other thing, going back to the, I will support this. Jana, don't worry about it. But and in the timeline, it has to be done. And I think most of us are appreciative of the fact that this money needs to be spent now. But I'd still like the idea about the green stuff on the back of the building. We need to take advantage of whatever we can out of this to make sure that the trees and the ferns and all the rest of it is part of a programme. And I would be satisfied if you said you keep an eye on it and you make sure that this all ties in. That would satisfy me, to be quite honest.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Ashley.
Can I get an answer on the health and safety stuff, which is the one that really
Yes,
important?
yes. I think they're deciding who's going to answer your questions.
Okay, sorry about that.
Right, who would like to answer Councillor Stewart Ashley's questions?
Hi, Councillor. Yeah, I'll have a go. There's a lot of detail there, isn't there?
Thank you.
The first one, I think, was about the bike parking, and it doesn't include bike parking. I think it's a very good question. When it was raised before, I mentioned that I wasn't absolutely sure what programme there was to provide parking across Pontypool. We have an active travel officer, as you know, so I would like to find out what's going on, because there may be a wider programme, but I'm happy to ask the question whether bike car parking can be included within the car park.
Will I come in very quickly now? We have a scrutiny this week of which on active travel. So maybe that's a question that could be asked in that scrutiny in relation to this as well. I think it's rather appetite that we're actually asking that then. It's Pat Bates, by the way.
Okay, yeah, understand that. Yeah, there are motorbike parking spaces as proposed, Councillor, and there's disabled spaces proposed as well. I wasn't quite sure whether you... Oh, we've lost everyone. Okay.
Lost your flow. No. No, they're pretty much just...
Stairwells are being replaced, aren't they?
Pardon?
Stairwells are being replaced.
Yeah, getting rid of the stairwell with that glass extension with the glass lift and then at the top floor, auxiliary steps, and then on the top floor you walk across straight from the lift to the car park.
I had this morning before my scrutiny meeting, and it says on here, no internet, reconnect to keep the conversation going. It says that on the Teams call, but down at the bottom, it's not telling me that it's saying that the Wi-Fi is okay.
No, I'm not connected, Gary.
Oh no, I'm not either.
I had this morning, and then I retried it.
Because you give such a long question, they're going to dissect it now, Stuart.
I think they've gone off around the universe with that one. I was just thinking of it. I was just tripping around Civic, you know, and
Stuart, they're back on.
They're back on. Hello?
Right, have we got you all back, Geraint?
Can you hear me
Can
okay
you
now?
hear us in the chamber? Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
I can't see you, we can hear you. Oh, here we are.
I'll try and remember where I left off, but I think I was just saying that there is motorcycle car parking being proposed as part of this as well. You mentioned about the steps up to Tesco. I'm not aware that there are any improvements as part of this proposal to the steps, but this proposal involves a lift, so it is an alternative to get in onto the top level via that lift. The stairwells are being replaced, so they'll be demolished and replaced with this glass staircase. And I think you mentioned maintenance as well. Well, with the maintenance, obviously, because it's council land and it's a council car park, all of that would be managed by the council going forward anyway. So it would be up to the council's management regime as to how they manage that. I think that was, Councillor, all your questions.
Well, and I've gone back to the green thing as well. The linkage down to the proposed chapel redevelopment. The development of the church. I think they would tie that up round the rear, won't they? I'm giving up on that, but obviously it sounds to me like you've got a plan which we don't really want to hold this up if we're going to approve it. Are you okay with that, Richard?
I'm fine with that, yeah. That's something that we'll consult with the landscape officer on, certainly, and we'll let members know.
I think if we can be let know, that would be acceptable to me, certainly.
Yes, if members of this committee be updated as it goes along, I think that will suffice. Yes, Stuart?
Yeah. Yes. If nobody else has got a question, then I'm quite happy to propose this.
Okay. There's someone in the chamber wants to come on.
Yes, it was myself, Chair. I was going to say to move it for approval. But,
I've just done that for you, Gay, now, to
yes,
make sure you were happy.
Well, I'll second it then.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, if there are no more questions, then we'll ask Geraint. Could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they are for, against, or are abstaining? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If I can start with Councillor Ashley, please.
For.
Councillor Best.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For. Could Richard stay on that after it finishes so I can chat with him, please?
Councillor Hawler.
For.
Councillor Gaynor-James.
For.
Councillor John James.
For.
Yourself, Chair.
For.
Councillor Slade.
For.
And Councillor Williams.
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Right, this application has been approved. Right, thank you. Thank you all for your attendance and your contributions. I will now close